Bachelor in Paradise continues, and mark your calendars, folks, because next week we're getting another double dose of fun as episodes continue on both Monday and Tuesday. And it looks like there's a lot of drama to unfold ahead of us, and most of it is due to cake. So let's see what this latest preview for Bachelor in Paradise Episode 4 has to offer, including who I think is getting eliminated next rose ceremony, and also the introduction of a former Bachelorette. And please, no posting any blatant spoilers in the comment section below unless it's something that's been sleuthed out, and if you want to watch the full preview without interruption, I'll leave a link to that in the description.
It's time for the main event.
I am here to find love with you.
So first and foremost, we can see that Joe and Serena are getting a one-on-one next week. If you're new to Paradise, you've probably noticed that every new entrant comes in with a date card to give them an edge in establishing a new connection. However, every so often, they also hand out additional date cards to people who are already on the beach, which appears to be what's happening with Joe and Serena as they head out on a date that we often see in Paradise: the wrestling luchador date. Now, as I see it, there are really only a couple of reasons why they'd give out a date card to someone who isn't a new arrival on the beach. One, it's to add some much-needed romance to a time where that's lacking. Two, it's to push a couple that they think is going to go the distance. Or three, they're planning something dubious. Like perhaps in this case, setting up a date, only for someone like Joe's ex to show up not long after. Now, I don't expect to see Kendall next episode, as I'm certain they'd be setting that up in the preview, and they aren't, but we do know from the season previews that she's on her way at some point. Keep your eyes peeled for the preview at the end of the next episode, because perhaps they might set Kendall up for Tuesday's episode, or for after the next rose ceremony when the men have the power again, and they can set up drama that Joe might give his rose to her. That being said, however, Joe and Serena certainly look like a couple that's going to weather whatever adversity comes their way, and I'll double back to why later on. For now, let's continue.
Connor is one of the sweetest humans I have ever met, but Riley is a dream man.
They slept in the boom boom room.
Wait, what?
They slept in the boom boom room?
I have no one to put on black.
So things are pretty doomed for Connor. His girl Marissa has found a stronger connection with someone else. Now, on one hand, I really loved Riley and Marissa's date, but I also feel kinda bad for Connor. I mean, how could you not after comments like this from last episode?
From how the other guys talk about him, I have respect for Riley already, and he seems like a great dude. So that makes it easier for me to be like, yeah, he's gonna show her a good time.
And it's also a bit awkward to go back and see in episode 2, Marissa saying this when Demi came and pulled Connor aside.
If Demi asked Connor on the date, I'll be upset because I fell quick and hard for Connor, so I was like putting all my eggs in one basket.
But hey, that's Paradise. Marissa and Riley seem like a really solid couple, they're becoming one of my favorites, and there's a ton of evidence that they've got a whole lot of romance ahead of them, and maybe even an engagement. So I'm excited to see that all unfold. Still, that leaves Connor as the odd one out, and with the women handing out the roses next week, you begin to wonder where he's gonna find his. And after scouring the season previews looking for any evidence that Connor makes it past the next rose ceremony, searching the backgrounds of shots like this one, a date we know is much later on as we can see people like Chelsea over here, nothing, however, seems to have Connor in it. So I'm expecting him to not get a rose at the next rose ceremony. But we're gonna dive further into possible eliminations at the end, so let's move on.
Everyone's freaking married around here.
Make a move on whoever you're interested in.
It's time I show everyone how Paradise is done.
Alright, so the person that Demi's going to be making a move on seems to be Kenny, and we'll see that coming up. But the real new information in this section is the addition of Chasen from Tayshia's season, both here and then here with Deandra. And this looks to be a date that we've actually seen before in the season preview, right here. But you might also notice that these two aren't alone. Check out this woman right here that looks to be Jasenia. So maybe this is a double date. And who could be on the date with the three of them? Well, if you remember from the pre-season previews, we got this shot right here, looks to be Chasen entering Paradise with someone else. Now, I was wondering if this could be Ed, and they're gonna pull a gag where the two enemies of Chicken Legs versus Schmedium Shirt will be putting aside their differences and coming into Paradise together. It would then make sense that they would have a double date where Chasen brings Deandra and Ed brings Jasenia. However, there's one thing ahead that's tripping me up about who this fourth date person is going to be, and I'll talk about that in a couple of segments. But whoever it is, I don't have the highest of hopes for either of those couples sparking anything substantial. But speaking of sparks, Natasha and Brendan look to be trying to ignite something again, but I don't think it'll last long with Brendan and Piper later on, as we've seen all over the previews, and Natasha potentially being with both Dr. Joe here, and also in this rose ceremony shot with Aaron. So yeah, these two won't be lasting long. Let's move on.
I really want to kiss you.
I'll kiss you right now.
She turns around and does this. And I'm right there watching.
The beach is imploding.
Tajwan continuing her Paradise tradition of yelling at the sea. Though this could actually just be editing. But the real feud we're going to be seeing won't be between Tajwan and the ocean. It'll be with Demi and Mari as Demi makes a move on Kenny. However, I wouldn't put too much stock into this relationship, as we know that Kenny is going to propose to someone, as we talked about last week in this shot. You can see Kenny's chain right here, and a lot of people also mentioned his chest tattoo being visible. Then, with the amount of footage from other previews with Kenny and Mari on fantasy suite type dates, we speculated that he'll most likely be proposing to Mari right here. But we can go even further than that, as one commenter on last week's video also pointed out some additional proof that he's proposing to Mari, saying that if we return to this shot of the same proposal but at a different angle, at the very beginning of the shot, you can see a ring on the woman's finger, right here on the right hand, middle finger. Then, if we jump onto Mari's Instagram page, we have not one, but multiple shots of Mari wearing the exact same ring on the same right hand, middle finger in each shot. Not to mention, we can also see Mari wear it all through the season. So there you have it, definitive proof. Let's continue on.
I deserve some respect.
Don't with me.
Everyone's making out with everyone.
Jasenia's gorgeous. Ivan should be scared.
Alright, pause. Here we have Jasenia on another date. And what's gagging me a bit here is I thought for sure that this Paradise entrance was Ed and Chasen coming in together, as it makes so much sense to me to have these two feuding brochachos come in at the same time. But if we take a look at what Jasenia is wearing here, it really matches up with what she's wearing on this date. But in this shot, she's with Chris Conran, a night one elimination from Claire's time as the Bachelorette. Now we know for sure that in this shot it is Chasen, as it matches up with what he's wearing right here. Then later he changes for his date with Deandra. So it's possible that this could actually be Chris Conran. I guess we'll find out next week. I'm not going to spend much more energy on figuring this one out, because I don't think Chris or Jasenia are going to be a hot new couple. For one, she'd have to dump Ivan for that to happen, and two, we've seen Chris on another one-on-one date that's different from this. Here, where he's ziplining and he's got a different outfit on from his date with Jasenia. Meaning, if this date with Jasenia is from the date card Chris comes in with, then this must be a date where he's asked out by someone else. Perhaps a new entrant once the men get power again. There's also proof that Chris won't be eliminated at the upcoming rose ceremony. I'll get into eliminations at the end, but here we also have to talk about Thomas and Aaron's feud. I'm going to show this section again, however this time I'm going to use the footage from the season preview as it provides a lot more context.
Aaron is ready to fight Thomas.
She kissed me at breakfast, she kissed you at night. I deserve some respect.
Don't with me.
So much for that attempted peace treaty from last episode, as here they're talking about Thomas hooking up with Tammy. However, it's interesting to note that Aaron says she kissed me at breakfast and you at night, while Thomas is wearing this, but the footage we get of Thomas and Tammy kissing is him in a different shirt without stripes. We've also talked about Thomas and Tammy fighting in this shot, where both are in new outfits different from that kissing shot. Makes me believe that Tammy is jumping ship to be with Thomas. Now, there's some additional sleuthing to do right here that involves Tammy, Aaron, Thomas, Becca, and Carl, but I want to talk about all that when we get to the rose possibilities for the next rose ceremony and eliminations. So let's finish off this preview and then get into that.
I trusted you, and then you backstabbed.
I'm not backstabbing you.
The beach is a dumpster fire right now. No one is safe.
Oh!
Your cake was in the fire, by the way. Suck my...
And here, the preview ends on a peak Paradise moment where Mari throws a cake into the fire. And probably my favorite part of that bit is actually Riley's reaction.
What is safe?
Oh!
Love it. So this Cakegate incident is something we've talked about before in past preview breakdowns, where Demi seems to give Kenny a birthday cake as she looks to nab him away from Mari, and Mari is not into that one bit. But obviously, with the proposal sleuthing from earlier, we know what the outcome of this is going to be. So, let's talk next rose ceremony. Who's gonna get a rose, and who will be eliminated? First and foremost, we can get the solid couples out of the way. Joe and Serena are here to last, and as I mentioned before, they're going to be making it through the Kendall arrival too. Check out this shot from the season preview, where Joe and Serena are at a rose ceremony hosted by Lil Jon, not Lance Bass, and Kendall is in the corner. There's a lot to unpack in this shot as well, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Now Noah and Abigail are another lock, as well as Marissa and Riley, which leaves Connor, likely, without a rose. Trey looks to be on track to keep Tajwan's rose. Brendan will likely get Natasha's, as we know he sticks around long enough for Piper to show up. And though Jasenia seems to be headed on a date with Chris, we know that Ivan is going to be sticking around, as he's in the rose ceremony shot right here. However, the really interesting thing to note, where is Jasenia? This is where things get interesting, because it actually looks like Ivan is paired with Kendall right here. But say, just for argument's sake, that Jasenia is hidden behind Ivan here. If that's the case, then who is Kendall with? Now, this isn't a complete shot, as we can see that there are people in the corner, like Marissa right here, and as many viewers pointed out, this dress matches with this shot right here, where I guess it's not a fantasy suite, but maybe another trip to the Boom Boom Room, we'll see, and that means we know there's more to see here, like Riley, and probably Mari with Kenny right here. But we also have couples like Natasha and Aaron, which I suppose makes sense after Brendan goes for Piper and Tammy goes for Thomas, but either way, we can use this to know that Aaron sticks around past next rose ceremony. There's also James with Tia right here, so we know he makes it too, but from here, we're really gonna have to dive into further sleuthing to pinpoint who else is staying and who is going. Now, the number of guys staying and going will all depend on how many new arrivals there are. Now, if it's just 2 more men arriving on top of Thomas and Riley from last week, then 4 men will go. We already have one of those men pegged down as probably Connor. I'd also not be surprised to see Chasen head out the same week he arrives. But we know Chris Conran stays not just because he has that additional date, but because he can be seen in this shot right here, on the same kind of group date from a future week that also has Chelsea and Bachelorette Becca on it. Which, if you count that out, we have everything we need. 10 women are left: Serena, Marissa, Abigail, Tajwan, Mari, Natasha, Jasenia, Demi, Tammy, and Deandra, and all of Joe, Riley, Noah, Kenny, Trey, Aaron, Brendan, James, Ivan, Thomas, and Chris all have couple safety or proof that they're in a future episode where new women are arriving. That's 10 men and 10 roses to be handed out, and wait a second, that's not 10, that was 11 men. And wait a minute, shouldn't Carl also be on that list, making it 12 men? As we know that Carl stays long enough for Bachelorette Becca to show up.
Surprise!
We got Bachelorette Becca Kufrin here to find love.
The math isn't adding up, but it's here that I noticed something. Check out what Aaron is wearing right here. It's the same shirt he's wearing in his fight with Thomas that's supposedly going to go down either Monday or Tuesday's episode. Which means Becca has to be coming in before the next rose ceremony. That would explain why the math doesn't work out for the 10 women we have handing out roses, but 11 men in future episodes. And it also explains why we have this shot with Carl and Becca. With Becca arriving, that would essentially mean there's 1 additional rose to be handed out to make it 11 for the 11 guys we've sleuthed out as safe. Now, as far as who's getting whose rose beyond the men I mentioned earlier, I'm not quite sure. Maybe Thomas gets Becca's rose, which sets off the Tammy drama we've discussed in past preview breakdowns. But I'm confident of the 11 men that are safe, which leaves Connor, Chasen, and Carl as going home. How we get to that point, we're just gonna have to find out next week. So that's it for this preview breakdown for next week of Paradise. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you did. Remember, the Bachelor in Paradise fun continues with 2 episodes next week on Monday and Tuesday, so until then, Bachelor Fan Take, out.
The beach is a dumpster fire right now. No one is safe.
Your cake was in the fire, by the way. Suck my